It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. And that's what you have here. That's what you've earned here tonight.
Forget about the crowd. It's the size of the school. Their fancy uniforms. And remember what got you here. If you put your effort and concentration into playing to your potential, to be the best that you can be, I don't care what the scoreboard says at the end of the game, in my book, we're going to be winners.
On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch because we know when we add up all those inches, that's gonna make the f***ing difference between winning and losing.
It's down to the wire with Errol Marks and Speedy Petey.
Oh, Petey! Oh, Petey!
On the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And I almost sang there. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. You do not want to hear me sing. This is Down to the Wire. We are live every single Monday and Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. New York Eastern Time. You can call us at 631-965-4990. And remember, you can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. You can follow us also by downloading our app. How do you do that? Well, if you have an Apple phone, all you have to do is go into the iOS store and find us at WWSRN. And if you can't do that and you have an Android, well, you could do it too. All you got to do is go to the search store for Android and put in Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Yes, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. So if you didn't download the app, please do. We want you to download the app. Mr. Speedy Petey, what's going on, my friends?
A little disappointed. I was looking forward to hearing you sing.
Well, I was going to sing, but I didn't want to sing in the beginning of the show. I didn't want to scare anybody off before we get into sports. So obviously, I'll hold off on that and just concentrate on what I do best. And if I do it good, I just want to talk sports. But again, there'll be a time and a place for everything, and that will be below the mic when I do sing. And you do sing as well. So anyways, I do want to get into the sports, but before we do that, how was your day today?
It was on and off. I was trying.
Who cares? How's that?
Okay. All right.
I'll tell you this. My day was absolutely terrible. I deal with a lot of people on the road all day long. And I will say this about Long Islanders to be as nice as possible about Long Island drivers. One thing is, nobody looks in the next lane. Nobody looks in their blind side. So when they shift to the next lane and they put their blinker on, they expect people to know that you're doing that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that would be a huge and a very bad idea. Well, I did that today, and I almost flew into a guardrail. And I'll tell you this, I don't like the fact that Long Islanders don't look behind themselves or really don't look in their mirrors. They don't use their mirrors. And I get scared. And by the way, there was a truck that was right in front of me. Nails came off the truck. And I guarantee you people were finding nails in their tires today. And I was one of them, by the way. I also had to get my tire fixed today because there was a sheet. What was it? A sheetrock nail or something like that was in my my tire. So it was a very bad day today. But I'm here to talk sports. I want to give a shout out to all the fans that listen to us every single day. All right, we have a great show lined up for you guys today. We will be talking to Missouri head baseball coach Steve Bieser, at 6:30. And at 7:15, we will be talking to Hawaii head baseball coach Mike Trapasso. So I'm looking forward to these interviews. We love interviewing coaches because we like to get their insight of what's going on in their sport, and we like to have a little bit of fun with them and crack jokes with them. So this will be a fun show today as far as I'm concerned with some of the coaches, the guys behind the bleachers, if you know what I mean, behind the clubhouses, those guys. Anyways, I do want to get into this particular subject because it's been bothering me, and I watch a lot of football. I really do, and football is, to me, well, not only America's big sport, but throughout the country, it's the biggest watched. The Super Bowl is the biggest watched episode, show, or whatever the heck you want to call it, extravaganza on TV every single year. And I'm not talking about the ball drop. I'm not talking about the NHL Stanley Cup Finals or the NBA Championship or any of those sports, or Wimbledon, or I don't know, the Masters. But Though what bothers me about football is the fact that the running back position is a dying breed. And you're going to say, well, what are you talking about? You still have Ezekiel, you still have Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley. See the names that I'm bringing up to you guys? Tell me this. Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell played for the first time in almost 2 years last year with the New York Jets. What did he do for the New York Jets? Absolutely nothing. Todd Gurley, 2 years ago, was the best running back in football. Where is he now? He's no longer with the Rams. He's now with the Atlanta Falcons. This is the guy that he was the highest paid running back in the NFL before last year. Now all of a sudden he was looking for a job. What's he making this year? $8 million?
I think 10.5 if he plays well, and then I think raw deal was 7.5.
The problem here right now, when you look at the big picture and you look at the NFL as a whole, and it became a wide receiving league. It really has. And you talk about the fact that the offensive line and the defensive lines are built around a championship competitive team. And we all know that if you want to win a championship, you have to build around your lines. And you need a consistent quarterback. You don't need a superstar quarterback, but you need a consistent quarterback, a.k.a. Rex Grossman. I don't know about consistency there.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
The fact is, when you think of the NFL now and the game, how it's completely transitioned into an offensive league, a wide receiving league, and you see all these different offensive styles. If you're not going with Josh McDaniel or Bill Belichick's offense, where they like to release the ball after 3 steps, get the ball in the open areas, use the running backs as wide receivers, use the tight ends as wide receivers, spread the offense open and inside and out. And then you think of teams like the Atlanta Falcons over the years. You saw their high-powered offense. And you look at their running backs like Coleman and Freeman and what they did a couple of years ago, which got them to the Super Bowl.
Even before that, too. They had Roddy White, they had Michael Turner, they had Harry Douglas, and obviously Julio Jones.
Well, I'm not talking about wide receiver. I'm talking about running backs.
Yeah, but again, even before that, going back, you have a lot of them, too. So I think what it is the feature back concept, because the Patriots have done so well, is really going away.
But it's a dying breed. You look at the running back position, and you look at what these guys are getting paid right now. Even if you're a subpar or good running back, you're making probably between $3.5 and $5 million. If you're an elite running back, you're making between $10 and $14 million a year. When you think of the wide receiver position, you think about the offensive line, the cornerback position, even the safety positions now. You're talking about Jamal Adams asking for big bucks. When you think about the running back position and you go up and down some of the league's best running backs, none of them make even as close to probably the worst first tier or second tier, best second tier wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, it's a passing league now. That was bound to happen, that kind of trend. And even judging the quarterbacks, the bottom tier quarterbacks that are getting paid more than any running backs are for the most part, too.
The running back gets beaten up the most. The running back gets really abused in the middle of the field. And they don't make anywhere as close to the money as a wide receiver does, a tight end does, or even an offensive lineman. Now, the running back touches the ball offensively more than any player besides the quarterback. The majority of the touches goes through the running back. Now, why is it that when you look at the NFL and you look at the big picture right now, and I understand why everybody says, well, it's a passing league, but the running back, especially in the playoffs, you have to have a dominant, aggressive running back, a.k.a. Derrick Henry. What he did for Tennessee last year in the playoffs was absolutely unbelievable. He took them all the way to the AFC title game.
But I think we also have seen, though, team running games really make a difference, too.
Look at the playoffs. We're talking about in the playoffs. I'm not even talking about the regular season. Mm-hmm. It's become a dying breed because it bothers me that NFL teams do not pay these guys who take most of the abuse, most of the head trauma, most of the leg trauma, mostly everything. As a running back, you're getting abused the most on the field.
No, I understand that. I think because again, you need the coaches, but I think because a lot of teams have worked with rotation running backs, we saw the Giants do it with Jacobs, Bradshaw, and Ward. We saw the Ravens do it a lot. We saw teams like the Broncos do it in their Super Bowl run. Peyton Manning was obviously on his decline and was not the best player on that offense. We've seen teams do that, and obviously the Patriots have done it for years, like we've said. So I think that's why certain teams have been able to do that. I think in terms of needing the coach, though, that's the other step to it.
This has nothing to do with the coach. And don't make any excuses for the coaches because you don't have a good coach. That's why you don't have a good running game. Because I think that's a complete ridiculous statement. You can get a good running back in the draft in the 4th or 5th round. And, because you don't have a great coach, they can't be developed. That is so ridiculous.
No,
I've seen the Houston Texans over the years have good running backs, and these guys, one of them was undrafted, and you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Aaron Foster. And if you look at the team and you look at the coaching from that team, do you really think they had a good coach?
Yeah, not a great coach, Gary Kubiak. He was good. He wasn't great, yeah. So, no, I didn't mean it like that. I meant it more in the setting of if you're going to run the running back by committee, you do need a good coach, and I think that's where the feature back thing is lying because a lot of teams are hiring offensive coaches now. So offensive coaches generally try to be creative with different things. We see Andy Reid do it with the Chiefs. We're seeing it now, obviously, with Bill Belichick. We've seen it with the Ravens after Ray Rice.
Why aren't they making money, Speedy? That's what I want to know. Why aren't they making money? Why is it the fact that everybody's complaining that Le'Veon Bell got $13 million from the New York Jets and they overpaid for him? Meanwhile, he has been one of the elite running backs in the last 6 or 7 years. That is the problem right now when you look at the big picture. I don't want to hear about coaching. I don't want to hear about throwing the position under the bus because to me, it is the most important position in my eyes when it comes to touching the ball and offensively running the offense through them, especially in the playoffs when you're trying to control the clock and you're trying to keep your defense off the field.
In terms of the availability, though, like you were saying earlier, you can find good running backs in the 3rd or 4th round, though, and it's always the deepest position in college football. So for that reason, maybe as well, their teams are letting go of them early after their rookie contracts, and especially with a recent track record with Todd Gurley, like we brought up earlier, with David Johnson, with guys like that steam out after that. It's becoming a position that's very short-lived, even more than it used to be, too. So you have to have that consistent guy as well. And the other factor is, like we were saying earlier, the injuries.
The hidden thought, and that's another thing. When you think of the running back and you think of some of the offers that come to the deal. Now, there are incentives when it comes to some contracts. And some of these running backs, like a.k.a. Le'Veon Bell, who has incentives on his contract, which can get him up to almost $15 million a year. If he's not playing enough because he's injured more than he is healthy, that's not going to get him his incentives. And to me, when you think of these positions, and you talk about the wide receiving position, a.k.a. Odell Beckham wanted, first of all, the New York Giants gave him a $20 million contract a year, okay? Then they traded him the same year they gave him that contract. They traded him to the Browns, and then the Browns had to renegotiate the deal and give him more money. And this is a guy that didn't step on the field as a wide receiver for the Browns until the beginning of the season and did absolutely nothing for the Browns.
He only caught 4 touchdowns, I think, last year.
And then you have running backs like Chubb. Yes, he's a rookie, but he was the most dominant offensive option that the Browns had. And I'll tell you this right now. When he becomes a free agent, how much do you think that kid's going to make? What is he going to make? $14 million a year? Is that fair to the running back who touches the ball and gets abused 90% of the time?
No, it's not fair. I agree with you in that notion. It's just a matter of you need to have that consistent guy too that doesn't get hurt.
Okay, so Todd Gurley was consistent. Why was he only making $14.5 million when he should be making as much as Odell Beckham?
Because that was the highest paid at the time.
It doesn't matter. Odell Beckham, he wasn't the highest paid offensive option in the NFL. Todd Gurley was one of the best offensive options in the league when he got that contract. Why is it that the wide receiver like a Julio Jones or a Hopkins or one of those guys, they're getting the $20 to $22 million contract, and the running back that touches the ball more and gets abused more on the field, who's probably a better option, is not getting as much money?
It will also depend on the way the team is structured, though, too, because if the team has receiving depth, maybe they don't have a set number one guy, but they have a bunch of good twos, then they can afford to pay a running back, though, too. Whereas I think because there's a lot of good running backs out there, teams are also being more stingy. That's why it was very hard for the Chargers to trade Melvin Gordon last year when he was holding out, and the Cowboys to trade Zeke when he was being annoying about his contract. They were trying to trade him. There's really not a lot of teams that need running backs.
Again, Speedy, we could talk about how many running backs are in the draft. We could talk about how easy it is to find a running back. How many running backs are dominant running backs in the league right now? 5? 6. So as easy as it may look to find a running back, they all don't become dominant options like a Le'Veon Bell, a Todd Gurley, a Zeke Elliott. They're not easy to find. So as much as you could say, well, you could find a good running back in the 3rd or 4th or maybe even the 5th round, or maybe even undrafted, but they don't make any money. So what does it matter? That's the problem right now in the NFL. That I understand the league has become an offensive league. I understand when you look at the quarterback position, you build your team around the quarterback offensively. You build around the offensive line now because he protects the quarterback. But what about the guy behind the line of scrimmage? The guy that's going to do all the things to open it up for the wide receivers, the tight ends, and open up the running game to open up seams for other players in the slot to make plays. That is the running back. And the running back, to me, is really solely mistreated in the NFL.
Again, I think there's 2 different reasons for that. One of which is offensive coaches that want to get creative and use multiple
Beg to differ
backs.
on that. It has nothing to do with the coaching.
Well, again, not every team has that type of coach, so they'll still stick to a feature running back that is 200
Hold on one second.
carries.
How many times on I'll tell you this. Let's look at numbers, okay? Because I guarantee if you look up numbers, an average running back on every single NFL team averages between 25 and 30 touches.
Per game, yeah.
Okay.
I would say that.
How many times do that number one wide receiver touch the ball? Average.
Targeted-wise, I would say probably 12 or 13.
Okay. And the second guy?
Per game, 6, 7, I would say.
Third guy?
Depends on the system, but usually about 4 or 5. And
Okay.
they're usually short
Still
options.
under 25 to 30 touches.
Okay.
So how is it that those guys are making more money to the guy that's running the ball, getting his ass beat behind a line of scrimmage? It doesn't make sense. To me, it's a dying breed. And I think the NFL, and you look at the game, you look at the Super Bowl. Look who won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. Look who dominated the running game in the Super Bowl in the 4th quarter.
Should have been MVP, in my opinion.
Okay, so the running back plays a huge part, especially in the playoffs for those teams. He touches the ball numerous amount of times. He touches the ball between 25 and 30 times, sometimes in the playoffs 35 to 40 times. If you look at Derrick Henry, he touched the ball, I think, 32 or 33 times in the playoffs. He played a big part, and you want to know something? They're still negotiating his contract because they don't know what he's going to pay him. What are they going to pay him, $14, $15 million?
Probably.
That is a wrong option when it comes to a player that is the offense for that team and that organization.
The other element to it is also teams are also looking for dual threats. They're looking for guys that are pass-catching backs, too. That's why Christian McCaffrey made the
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he's a pass-catching running back or a running back. Mm-hmm. The problem is when you think of the position and understand the position and how the position is used in the NFL, you have to look at the touches. You have to look at the abuse in the middle of the line of scrimmage. You have to look at their lifespan as an NFL player. You have to pay those guys. And to me, when you look at the positioning and you look at the wide receivers could play between the ages of 36 and 38 years old. Most running backs don't play longer than 6 to 7 years, which usually means 29 to 30 years old. They're done with their careers. Safeties play till they're 35. Corners play till they're 35. Or offensive linemen play to their 36, 37 years old. You have defensive linemen that could play to their 35,
Especially
36.
tackles,
Quarterbacks that play to 40-something years old. To me, when you look at the running back position and the abuse that they take in the middle of the field and the way they play down to the wire, yes, down to the wire.
Nice.
I think they should be paid as much as any one of those players on the field besides the quarterback. Because they're taking the abuse. They're in the league the least amount from all the other positions. And you go look at, backtrack some of the running backs of our time and in the past, how many head trauma injuries do they have? Hamstring problems they have to this day, ankle problems, foot problems, toe problems. All these guys take abuse at the line of scrimmage, but they don't get paid. And that's what bothers me. Because when I look at the positioning and all these players, you got Jamal Adams crying that he deserves $100 million. Let's talk about Le'Veon Bell that everybody was bitching and moaning that got $13 million a year. That's a joke. That is a joke. Le'Veon Bell has been a more successful player at his position than Jamal Adams has. And Jamal Adams has been in the league for almost 4 years now. If you look at Le'Veon Bell, who was a second-round draft pick, and you go up and down his career so far, his first 4 years, tell me who's been a better player.
Right. I think the first 3 games he missed because of injury in his rookie year, and he was dominant even then. And since then, from then to 2018, he was so dominant.
And that's why when you look at the positioning, you have to look at the positioning of the players that we're talking about and the positions. Because when you compare and contrast what these guys make because of the positions that they play, a.k.a. the corner is making tons and tons of money. So top corners are making between $80 and $90 million. And you look at the running back position, the highest paid running back in the NFL is making Zeke's money, which is $60 million a year, and he got a $38 million guaranteed money. That, to me, is a crock of you-know-what. It is a complete appalling situation when you look at the positioning of how many times they touch the ball and what they do for their teams in big problematic times. If you look at, you're on the 25-yard line. There's 3.5 minutes left, and you're up by 4, okay? Who's touching the ball 90% of the time?
You're starting running back.
You're starting running back. If you're on the 4-yard line or the 3rd-yard line, 90% of the time, what is the coach going to do?
You're run with your starting running back.
He is going to run with his running back. That's what he's going to do. Now, how many, the top running back in the NFL this year, how many touchdowns did he have this year?
I think it was Christian McCaffrey, and that was 19, I believe.
19.
Rushing and receiving.
No, I'm talking about running back, running the ball into the end zone.
13.
13 touchdowns, okay? Now, the highest wide receiver when it comes to touchdown and catching the ball.
I think it was also 13 this year.
Okay, so now let's just go back here. You said 13 and 13. I think it was Hopkins, right?
I think it was Devontae Adams.
Devontae Adams. Okay, he had 13 touchdowns. And then you had, who led the league in running back touchdowns? Christian McCaffrey. Mm-hmm. Okay, so they both had 13 touchdowns. Now, Christian McCaffrey just got an extension on his contract. What was it?
$17.5 million.
$17.5 million. Now, Christian McCaffrey, now the best wide receiver in the NFL. How much is he making a year?
Who do you think is the best? Julio Jones?
All right, who's the highest paid wide receiver?
Michael Thomas, which is $21 million.
$21 million. So he is making $5 million more than the best running back in football. The guy that touches the ball, that takes the most abuse at the line of scrimmage. Is that fair? That is not fair. And I don't care what the league has turned out to be. It's an offensive league. The running back plays a big part of the offense. If you don't have a strong running back, you're not winning no Super Bowl. That's a guarantee. You can have the best wide receiver in the NFL. Go backtrack the Super Bowls that we've seen in the last 10 years. Tell me the best wide receiver in that game, how many touchdowns he had. How many MVPs did they get? I guarantee you in the last 10 years, a wide receiver was not once an MVP.
No, it wasn't. I don't think even the last, I would say, since Jerry Rice won one.
But I bet you in the last 10 years, there was a running back.
Mm-hmm. Adrian Peterson.
Mm-hmm. So what does that tell you? Mm-hmm. That tells you just as much of the importance of the wide receiver position is just as important as the running back. The running back is just as important as the wide receiver. So this is the argument, this is the thought to this monologue and really this argument to the beginning of the show. When we come back, we'll be talking to head baseball coach of Missouri, Steve Bieser, here on Down to the Wire.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You're listening to Down to the Wire on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
631-965-4990 is the number to call. As you guys know, this is Down to the Wire. We are live every single Monday and Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. New York Eastern Time. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, download or check out our website by going to www.worldwidesportsradio.com. BieserSportsRadio.com. I was looking forward to interviewing this guy, and I'll tell you this right now. We have a great show lined up for you guys. Like we said in the beginning of the show, we are now talking to Missouri head baseball coach Steve Bieser. What's going on, Coach?
Oh man, all kinds of things going on this time. We're in the recruiting season without actually seeing players, and just really kind of getting ready for the holiday weekend. Normally we're out on the front, but get a chance to spend some time with the family at a time of the year that typically we don't get that opportunity. So, trying to make the best of a tough situation. How are
you and your family doing right now with this pandemic? I mean, like you were saying, I mean, there's just so much there. We don't know what stage it's in. In certain areas, it's in stage 2, stage 1. Here in New York, in the city, it's in stage 2, and we're already in stage 3. We're going into stage 4. What is it like over there where you're from?
Yeah, it's just crazy because there's so much uncertainty, and I think different parts of the country are experiencing this at different times, and here in the Midwest, I think we're all just curious of how hard are we going to get hit in the second wave, and it just seems like we're still in phase 1, where things have kind of continued to die down quite a bit. But I think as far as how's my family doing, I think my wife is kind of in uncharted waters because she's not used to seeing a whole lot of June and July or the recruiting season for college baseball. So I've been around the house a lot more than normal, and I think we're all just adjusting to the new style. Zoom calls are something that very frequent. I mean, probably averaging 3 to 4 Zoom calls a day, and just finding different ways to do things.
Coach, why don't you be honest? Your wife wants you out of the house. I mean, seriously, what does women want more than anything? They want the man out of the house. They want him to, do what they love to do and get him out of the house. Am I right or wrong?
You may be right in that case. I think with my wife, she's so used to baseball being our life, and as a player, you're gone a lot, and then settled down for 9 years and coached high school baseball and was going to kind of just stay rooted in one area, and I just got the itch to go to college, and it's kind of it all ramps back up. It's a different time of the year and different type of being gone, but it's something that she's weathered that entire storm as she's the high school sweetheart that started me from down in the high school Legion days and worked her way all the way through this. So she's been quite a trooper.
Sounds like a good woman.
No doubt.
Why don't we get into some Missouri baseball? Now, I asked a lot of coaches. We've interviewed a lot of baseball coaches, and I'll tell you this. The first question I always ask is, and I don't want to ask you first, so I want to get into your recruitment and really your thoughts on, you were just talking about this is recruitment season. How do you go into a particular player's house and really pitch Missouri baseball and really the academics, the school as a whole, and how do you have them draw to you where they decide to go and play for you?
Well, I think first and foremost is the University of Missouri is a huge draw. I mean, from an academic standpoint, over 300 degree programs and just the history of academics and success that people's had coming out of the University of Missouri. So we're always focused on the education side of it, and from academics, we're looking for high achievers in the classroom, because I'm a firm believer of high achievers in the classroom are high achievers in life in general, and if they're willing to put that effort forth on something that you may not be crazy to do, to show up to class every day and learn, how much more are they going to be when they hit the baseball field. But we're recruiting to a very storied baseball program. I think the things that people don't know about the University of Missouri is there's been Baseball America reports talking about the most productive major leaguers over the last decade of I think we're ranked number 5 with the most productive major leaguers, and that includes your Max Scherzers and Ian Kinsler and Kyle Gibson, Aaron Crow. There's just been a lot of success here, especially on the pitching front. But to go along with that, the number of and just in general, I think we're one of 40 schools that's won a national championship. Now, it's been a long time, but all those things, that the history that's been here, and what we're building on and feel very confident in, is just the baseball development that we can create at the University of Missouri. So it's just a great place. It's a great place to live. It's a great community. So there's a big draw, and the fact that we're SEC. I mean, there's just so many draws, and makes the recruiting life it's challenging because we're competing against the top programs in the country for recruits. But it's different than when I was recruiting at Southeast Missouri State. Just that the challenges are always different.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that. Being in the SEC, is it harder to recruit with other baseball talents still there, Florida, LSU, teams like that are really dominating in that conference? Does that make it harder, or does the SEC lure help a little more when developing an entire team with a larger baseball roster?
Well, the SEC does lure more athletes that want to come and play in the SEC. So you've got more athletes, and they're top end athletes. So you are competing not only against the other 13 schools in the SEC, but you're competing against ACC, Big 12, Pac-12. You're competing across the country for the top 500 players in the country every single year. So that is a challenge. So when you talk about, we used to joke at Southeast when we were there that, we were probably going to get 1 out of 100 guys that we contact and communicate with. I don't know that those numbers are a whole lot better because we're just dealing with a different clientele there. So you gotta be relentless, and you've got to understand and accept that you're going to hear some no's. But I think getting disappointed about the no's is really where people kind of, get caught up and maybe get a little dejected and depressed. But we just keep going after the top players, and that has worked, and we're slowly getting this. We feel like we've got a really good recruiting class coming in this year, and better one next year, and it just it's continuing. The ball's starting to roll in the right direction, and we feel very confident about the program here.
We are talking to Missouri head baseball coach Steve Bieser. Now, Coach, I've seen some of the guys that you've coached. What was the player that stood out the most to you that has moved on to the MLB and really thrived as a leader of boys in the major leagues?
Yeah, I think the guy that personally I've coached is Joey Lucchesi, the Padres. I think he slotted in that number 2 or number 3 role as a starting pitcher, but just his story in general of being a guy that didn't play his high school senior season, was at a junior college, got redshirted the first year, and then started pitching there, and then came on. We got him convinced to come to Southeast Missouri State, and to watch his junior year, very good year, but then his senior year, such a dominant year, and just kind of to see that, and I guess maybe I've got a soft spot for those late bloomers and guys that were kind of long shots. That his never give in attitude, and then just him building the confidence over those years, and then getting an opportunity, and then seeing how quickly he rose through the minor leagues to get to the major leagues. So to me, that's one of the best stories that I've coached up to this point. And I think I've got several guys right now knocking on the door of being major leaguers as well. So, Shea Simmons, I guess, will be another story of rising through the ranks pretty quick, and being a later round draft pick and getting to the Braves as a setup man for Kimbrel, and just those are 2 guys that I think are being long shots and then jumping and rising quickly are good stories.
One of the guys that you just coached last year was one of the best starting pitchers in college baseball last year was TJ Sikkema, and then he got drafted last year in the MLB draft. What impressed you the most about his game last year and his pitching style, and how much do you think it could translate into the majors?
Yeah, I mean, what TJ has, you don't teach and you can't teach. I mean, he's such a bulldog when he hits the mound. His confidence, he's confident in everything that he does. And I think TJ's a guy that, from an arm slot, he just creates a lot of havoc. And I think he could rise very quickly to the major league level, especially as a lefty on lefty. It's a guy that I don't think any lefty wants to face. But I could see him being a bullpen guy really quick. Not to discount that he can't be a starter because he's been so successful in that role as well. But to get there quickly, I think he's ready to get some outs, so he gets some pretty good hitters at a high level.
Coach, what is your thoughts to Tommy Johns? We've talked to coaches throughout the major leagues and really the coaches to college baseball. And Tommy John surgery has been really taken over, not only for the pitchers, now players. I mean, we saw that with Gleyber Torres. We've seen this over and over again, and we saw it from even shortstops from the New York Yankees in Didi Gregorius, who tore his
I forget UCL. I think
UCL.
it was. Yeah.
When you look at the positioning of the arm and really what these players are doing at a young age, what do you think is the cause of Tommy John surgery in your mind?
I think the biggest thing is just the number of games that our athletes play these days. I think it's like anything that, eventually something's going to wear out if you use it enough. And I think that we're seeing, especially you're seeing teenagers coming through, whether that's 10U to, 15U, and those guys, as they're still developing, are playing, 60, 70 games a summer. And I remember when I was playing, if we played 20 games a summer, that was a lot. I mean, we didn't play a lot of pickup baseball, but you lose, it's just like a major league season. Everybody really amps up and gets completely prepared in the off season, and they're doing all this work. And as the season starts to wear on, you lose some of those good habits you have from arm care and maybe getting in the weight room regularly and staying conditioned. And as your body tires, you're going to be more susceptible to injury. So I just think it's probably it's an overuse issue, as well as our athletes they're just more dynamic. They're more explosive. They're stronger. They're faster. They throw harder. All those things are contributing. And I don't know if it's anything that we can prevent. And knock on wood, we've been very, very successful in the programs that I've been coaching at, and really haven't had to deal with that, and hope that we can continue to kind of do some of the things that we believe in and keep our players healthy.
You're mentioning both programs that you have been part of, Southeast Missouri State before that, and now obviously with Missouri. Missouri with MLB has always been both the Cardinals and the Royals have always had passionate fan bases for MLB. Do you see that at the college level? And do you think it is something that helps recruiting, them being able to play with for these great crowds?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. The SEC is it's crazy, the support that you get. The LSUs of the world drawing 15,000. And I think one of the tough things for us in drawing fans, and we have a very passionate fan base. Early in the season, games are a little bit cooler. It doesn't, when you're playing college baseball, it just doesn't seem like baseball season when you start mid-February. But as the weather warms up and we get closer to, we get into that late March and early April, our fan base comes out and really supports. But, the thing that our fan base has that a lot of other SEC schools fan base don't have is the fact that, we can drive an hour and 40 minutes to the east or an hour and 40 minutes to the west, and we can watch Major League Baseball and good Major League Baseball with the Royals and the Cardinals. So there's so many passionate baseball fans, especially in Columbia, sitting right in the middle of those two hot spots for Major League Baseball.
We are talking to Missouri head baseball coach Steve Bieser. Now, Coach, I love locker rooms, and I was the funny guy in my locker room. I like to be the clown and make everybody – I was one of the captains of my team. I just like to drive everybody to have a good time. Is there a particular player from last year and going into this season that stands out the most, the leader, the funny guy of the clubhouse?
Yeah, I mean, I think every clubhouse has that guy, and it's basically, here it's been a tradition. It's kind of been passed on from year to year, but we started making some national headlines with just some of the skits that our players would do after games. It'd be on the SEC network, and it started going viral on social media. But, a guy like Tyler LaPlante, who was a left-handed Sunday guy for us, kind of started, and really, pitchers have a lot of time on their hands. So it tends to be a pitcher that's really opposed to the skits and the goof around stuff. But, we've got a new guy coming up that just loves the game, and he just loves being at the field every day. And his name's Eric Menzel. It's kind of, was a freshman last year and just enjoyed having a lot of fun when he's on the bench. And, he's going to be an impact player for us. And I think sometimes those rules change as you as you move from a bench player to an everyday player. But I know that we'll have somebody step up, and we'll have that. Just we like to have fun at the ballpark. And I had an assistant coach that was working for me, and just said, hey, when we played you guys, your team laughed. They had fun. He goes, did you ever notice that nobody smiles in the SEC? And I was kind of like, no, I didn't. But, I think some of that just me being laid back and is the fact that, I'm used to a 162 game schedule. And, and you start with spring training and you play, 20 games, and you go to winter ball and you might play 40, 50 games. But, I think maybe that you just understand that in the big picture that things will work themselves out. Although, in a 56-game season, it's about what we're getting ready to see now. It's a sprint to the finish line, so every game means so much, and maybe that's why there's not a lot of smiling going on game day. But we like to kind of keep it light and have a lot of fun in our program.
You were talking about the major leagues and your time playing there. You actually played for the Mets and the Pirates. So talk about your experiences in the majors, and also what are some of the differences between an MLB locker room that you could see and now coaching these college kids? What are some of the differences?
He didn't have to play for the Wilpons.
True.
Yeah, well, just my career in general. Obviously, the length of it, it was a 13-year professional career, but the length in the big leagues just, wasn't as long as I would have enjoyed. I was when I broke in with the Mets, I was the oldest rookie to wear a Mets uniform, and that was broken, I think, later that year with Sean Gilbert. But it's a dream come true to get to that level. It was something that I was, I was determined whether I was going to be, 45. I was going to find my way to the major league, and I just kept working extremely hard. But like they say, the major leagues kind of, it separates, getting there is very difficult, but, it's even tougher to stay there, especially as a 29-year-old rookie. But it was just so special. I mean, I remember opening day still, we opened up in San Diego, and at that time I'd already been familiar with all, the superstars that were on the Mets team at that time. But, we're opening up, and Ricky Henderson's leading off, and that was a childhood hero of mine of being a base stealer, and you got Tony Gwynn in a 3-hole, and the killer bees. It was just, it was so, it was just kind of surreal, and just really enjoyed every moment of that. But kind of the second part of your question is, the difference, and this took me some time to adjust to, especially going from pro ball to high school, and college is a little bit more rah-rah. There's a lot of cheering on the bench. There's there's in pro ball, there's just not a whole lot of talking. You go out and you do your job, and the locker room, you have fun after the game. I think at the pro level, but it's just really all business when you're out there on the field. And I think there's just more, a little bit, and rightfully so, there should be. You look at a college roster, and in our case, we, each year we may have 7 guys, anywhere from 5 to probably 10 guys that got a chance to go pro, and the other 25 are not pro players, so they're there to, have they're really focusing on their college career. But there's some similarities, but there's more differences probably than similarities.
We are talking to Missouri head baseball coach Steve Bieser. Now, Coach, I want to get into some MLB conversation with you. You played in the MLB and the transition of the DH. Now, there are stories coming out from the National League with the new CBA coming out probably in the next year or 2 years that they're going to transition to the DH position for the National League. The American League has had it for over, I think, 30 years now or 40 years. And you look at baseball, and it changes the game around, especially in the National League when the coaches and the managers have to really use a lot of aggressive play, especially in the 8th and 9th inning with their pitching staff and maybe even some of the guys in the field. Are you upset that if the National League or the league completely transitions into a DH in the National League?
I don't think I would say I'm upset. I know as a coach, I would rather manage in the National League because I just think, I love the intricacies of the game and the double switch and all those things that, it just becomes a chess match with the other team. And as a coach, I would really enjoy and embrace those challenges of having to manage that. But, as a college coach, you're seeing the same thing because we have the DH. There's still things that you've got to make good decisions on. It's probably really more designed around pitching changes than it is around maneuvering lineups and everything else. But I do believe, as a fan, I think I would enjoy adding that extra hitter in the National League. I just don't think a pitcher that doesn't spend a whole lot of time of honing his craft as a hitter and goes up and is almost they're almost an automatic out. That it's super exciting when a pitcher steps to the plate and I just like I think we all like to see offense and there's more of a chance for offense and I also believe it helps. It helps to get another everyday player in the lineup. Now, it hurts probably somebody like myself as I was coming up if I needed to be in the National League to get to the big leagues because of my versatility and having some, value as a bench player. But, I guess that's a roundabout answer, but I'm torn between a lot of different things. I think we'll adjust to that DH and see it as normal in time, but it does take away some of the managerial moves and stuff like that I always thought was interesting.
I will tell you this, Coach. We've talked to a lot of coaches, and a lot of coaches that played in the major leagues or they're big baseball fans. They do not like, and we've talked to even writers, they do not like the fact that they're trying to implement the DH position to the National League. I'm very surprised for a player like you who actually played in the major leagues in the National League, that you would absolutely think about moving the DH into the National League. So I'm very surprised, but you know what? That's something unique. So that's the greatness of talking to somebody that's actually played in the major leagues and understands the National League to the American League.
The Pirates broadcaster we had him on, he went about,
he was upset.
6 minutes on that.
He was upset. He was upset at Coach. He was upset at us that we asked him that question.
I love offense. I'm an offensive-minded guy, and if we can bang the ball around the yard and score a lot of runs, I think that's exciting. And when I say that, I mean, people would probably classify me as the coach in the SEC that probably plays the most small ball as well. So, but I just love to see offense and I enjoy watching really good hitters. And I think, there's some really good hitters that might not be able to get on the field in any other form other than DH.
Last question from me. I've asked a lot of baseball and softball coaches this. The format of the College World Series and the regional tournaments, I always found it strange that it was very different than a lot of the other college sports where it really benefits the top seeds with the regional locations. And again, it's the only sport that has that. Hockey, basketball, everything else has all neutral sites for the most part. Are you in favor of that kind of system where they do get that kind of benefit, or do you think it should be more neutral like other college sports?
I love the college model of it, and I guess it's because you do play 56 games that kind of get to that point, and we know how the game of baseball works. I mean, anybody can beat anybody on a given day, and I think getting over the long haul, this gets the best teams. You get your final 6 teams, you get the best teams in the College World Series, and there's always that Cinderella that comes through, and those are. I think it's just it makes for a great story every single year to kind of see how it all breaks down and who ends up in the College World Series. But, the one thing I do know is that home field advantage in baseball and having that home crowd, it's huge. I mean, when you look in the SEC, the percentage of games that are won at home, last year we were 4-1 in 5 home SEC weekends, and you look across the league, and everybody is winning more at home, and I think just that the fan base makes it much more difficult for an 18 to 22-year-old kid to deal with some of the stuff that you're going to deal with at a major league park, and the fans kind of booing you, and they get that taste. And I just think college baseball is it needs to be different than professional baseball. It's just a different level, and I think it just adds a different excitement to the game to see it kind of at the amateur college level, and then also to see it at the pro level.
We are talking to Missouri head baseball coach Steve Bieser. Now, Steve, this is the last question I have for you. It's a 2-part question. What are your thoughts to the major leagues implementing the electronic umpire behind the plate? And what were your thoughts when the Astros got caught cheating? And do you think the MLB did enough on dropping the hammer on that organization?
Oh, that last one's a really tough question. But, as far as the electronic umpire, I really enjoy the human element of the game. I think it's something that, it's another strategy that, and again, we'll adjust to, I think players will adjust to whatever the rules are. But when you understand an umpire and you understand the zone as a pitcher and you're able to exploit it, and that as a hitter, you've got to make those adjustments. I mean, it's just such a cat and mouse game of if it's an electronic umpire, it's through the box or it's not through the box. If it's a human, maybe it's a ball off the plate, but he's not getting it in. But I just think that, I hate to see the game change so drastically, and I think that would be a very drastic change in the game. And then the same token, if my favorite team I'm watching kind of loses a game because of a bad call or whatever, from there you're like, we need electronic umpires. So I think it's something that I'm intrigued by it, but not really sold on that fact. But for the Astros, I really, and I'm an expert in the professional area because so much of my time is just focused on the college game and really paying attention to the college game. I will say that, I'm paranoid everywhere that we go, that system is somebody, the Astros weren't the first ones to think of trying to use a system like that. I think it's thought of just about everywhere. Everybody's trying to gain that edge, and it's such a competitive environment. And just really, I don't believe that that's the way to do it. I love the part of if I'm at second base and the opposing team is not protecting signs and I'm able to see in and they're being very sloppy and helping a teammate, that electronically is just not the way to kind of get that edge. But that's been in baseball of, if you're on first base and the catcher's sloppy with the signs and you can see and you've got ways that you're working with the guy that's in the lineup with you and you guys kind of have a little code system that works. I just think that's part of the game, but definitely not electronically. And I don't know what the penalty. I don't know what the penalty should be. I do think that that's held for people that's higher than me and really didn't think a whole lot about the penalty phase of it. But I do know that as a player that would disappoint me because you're talking about not only winning and losing a ball game, you're talking about players' careers, and I know how difficult it is. Sometimes a pitcher may only get one shot, and he failed. So if he was being cheated out of that opportunity, then that would be very depressing as well.
Coach, why don't you tell all the fans how they can find you on social media?
My Twitter handle is just my last name, Bieser, SR. And also, the Mizzou Baseball account, just Mizzou Baseball, at Mizzou Baseball. That's another way to follow, really kind of and track our team there. But the one format I use is basically just Twitter. I don't really, it took me a while when texting first came out to start texting, and I think I'm kind of slow advancing in my social media game as well. I do enjoy the information that I find from Twitter and do like to put a little bit out there as well.
Well, Coach, when the new baseball season starts for you and for the MLB, we'd love to get you back on and get your input with Missouri baseball and where you're going in the future. So we would love to get you back on.
Thank you. I enjoyed our time, and, you guys stay safe up there.
You too, Coach. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Coach Bieser, ladies and gentlemen, the baseball coach of Missouri, gave us some good insight, not only to his team, but his thoughts of some of the different MLB implemented rules, the DH, Tommy John surgery, and all the different things that we talk to the coaches, especially in baseball, about. He gave us some good insight. When we come back, we'll get more into the baseball season, and we will also have our second guest, which will be Mike Trapasso here on Down to the Wire, Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You're listening to Down to the Wire on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Oh. Don't come close to the edge. One, not to beat Speedy in the head. Ho, ho. 631-965-4990 is the number. This is Down to the Wire. We are live every single Monday and Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. New York Eastern Time. And remember, you can go and check us out on our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com and download our app on the iOS and the Android. Please, guys, if you're not doing that, do that. All our stuff is on our app, so please. I put a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of money into the app. I want you guys to download it and absolutely stay in touch with what we're doing moving forward on our network. Before we have our second guest, and our second guest is going to be great as well, we're going to be talking to Hawaii head baseball coach Mike Trapasso, so I'm looking forward to that. I want to get into this particular subject that Speedy wanted to get into. Go ahead, Speedy.
So what legends of any sport would not be as good if they were on a different team in their time? So whether that's a team of the same level or just a different coach or just any team, what legend would not be as great as they are thought of to be?
You know, it's an interesting question because you look at Tom Brady. Would Tom Brady be Tom Brady if he didn't actually be coached by Bill Belichick? And the answer would probably be no. He wouldn't be the same player because if it wasn't for Bill Belichick drafting him the way he did in the 6th round, I think it was the 6th round, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think Tom Brady would have gotten that shot. I don't even think Tom Brady would have been a backup quarterback behind Drew Bledsoe if it wasn't for Bill Belichick. Right. Now, the question is, there's a lot of players. You talk about Ryan Leaf. Ryan Leaf was a great, sensational college player. He came into the NFL, and he completely fell off with drugs and all the different things that he did on and off the field. So, legends, you can question some of the players. Like, would Randy Moss be as good as he was? I think he would have, no matter where he would have been, because of his ability to move inside and out of the field. He was very fast on the outside, but very, very, very big and strong and lengthy in the red zone. So, I think Randy Moss would have been a great player. The guy that really stands out to me that probably wouldn't be as good as he would have been if he didn't play for the Minnesota Vikings is Adrian Peterson. And a lot of people say, well, Adrian Peterson, he dominated. Look at the offensive lines he played with those Minnesota Viking teams. Go up and down those Viking offensive lines, except 1 year with all those injuries. Right. I think they had
later
3
in his
injuries.
career, right.
Yes. Mm-hmm. He had one of the most dominant offensive lines in football.
Yeah, I think you're looking at one that already made the Hall of Fame in Steve Hutchinson, another future one in Matt Burke and Bryant McKinney, who's a borderline. So that was a great line that he played with, especially in his rookie year, right at the beginning of his career.
And that's why when you look at the positions and what makes a lot of running backs so special, okay? Because, for instance, everybody says a lot of things about Kareem Hunt, okay? What he did on and off the field. Really, what he did off the field was completely appalling. Domestic violence and what he did. That's why he got thrown off the Chiefs. Go look at the Chiefs' offensive line when he dominated. Go look at Kareem Hunt's offensive line. Besides the center that they had on the team, their offensive line and the tackle, this offensive line wasn't. Yeah, this offensive line was not good. That's what made Kareem Hunt. That's what made Kareem Hunt stand out in my eyes. And now the Browns still own the rights to Kareem Hunt. And I think, to me, if I was a team right now, I would scoop him right up because I think he would fit on any other team. Even if you have a bad offensive line, you're going to get a lot out of Kareem Hunt, especially if he goes into OTAs.
And he's also another one that's a good pass-catching back, too, where he could do a lot of different things for your offense, and he's a perfect modern fit. So, yeah, I'm surprised he hasn't gotten really that starting opportunity. And I'm also surprised he stayed with the Browns again. That's very interesting with Chubb there and Chubb having the great season that he did last year.
And I don't really look at defensive players because defensive players, they're either good or they're not. It doesn't matter what team they're playing for. You're either good or you're not. Defense is different from offense, but the quarterback makes the team. The offensive line makes the offense. I mean, if you have those particular players lined up for your team, the wide receivers, the tight ends, and the running backs will play better. So to me, the most important aspect of when you're talking about players and the positions of what they play, you have to look at the positions in the NFL and where they play. Now, in baseball, it's a good question. Would Derek Jeter be Derek Jeter if he played for the Kansas City Royals? No, he wouldn't be. No, he wouldn't be. Derek Jeter would not be Derek Jeter, the captain, the guy, the Hall of Famer. He might have been a Hall of Famer. Who knows? Right. But would he have had the great career that he had with the New York Yankees if he played for another team? And the answer is no.
The same reasoning. I'm going to go to basketball now. I think Bill Russell would have been another one, too. Everyone thinks of him as possibly a top 5 player of all time, but that Celtics team was also loaded, too. So if he was playing really on his own, he might have still been great. I think he still would have been great because he was a beast, but would he have been considered like that top 5 player of all time like a lot of people do? I don't know. And he definitely wouldn't have won the 11 championships.
You have to look at, when you look at professional sports and you look at team sports, you have to look at who the players played with on those teams. And like, for instance, Kevin Garnett played with Stephon Marbury. That's it. So, and I'm not saying the Minnesota Timberwolves were a great team, but they were in the Western Conference, and you look at all the teams they had to run it and play against, the Sacramento Kings with the Chris Webbers of the world, and the Lottie Divacs, and all those teams that were good in those days. And then you talk about the Lakers with Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant and Derek Fisher and Phil Jackson. And then you talk about all these teams, but in my eyes, when you look at basketball, it really has to do with the one or two superstars. That's all that really matters. Right. So I wouldn't even look at basketball to be the sport that I would be picking and really choosing on. Well, if he played for another organization, would he be as good? Now, I will say this: in baseball, it's very, very interesting because pitching is as important as the quarterback position. It is. Pitching is as important as the quarterback position. But here's the problem. When you look at offensive players, like I would say Aaron Judge, okay? Aaron Judge is a great offensive player. And he's proven that he can hit for average. He has also proven that he can hit for power. Mm-hmm. Now, if he played in Yankee Stadium, would he have hit 50-some-odd home runs his first season? The answer is no. I don't think so. And that's the honest truth from a Yankee fan. If for instance, the Panda Bear,
Pete
Alonso hit 53 home runs last year. Okay, if the balls weren't juiced, okay, do you think Pete Alonso would have hit 53 home runs in his rookie season?
Right. There's a lot of random ones too that hit over 40 home runs that nobody expected too.
The answer is no. So I will go up and if I really thought about this and I really looked at all the Hall of Famers, all the guys that have gone to the Hall of Fame in the NFL, the NHL, or any of those. And for instance, and we'll go to the NHL right now. And I'm not going to talk about goaltending because goaltending is the backbone of the sport of hockey.
And it's more individual.
Yes.
Too.
When you look at, let's say, a Mark Recchi. Mark Recchi is a borderline Hall of Famer. He was a good NHL player. Would he have been as good if he didn't play with Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr? The answer is no. Okay? Eric Lindros. Would Eric Lindros have been as good at certain aspects of his game and certain years of his game if he didn't play with John LeClair or Michael Renberg, the Legion of Boom or Legion of Doom? The answer is no. Okay? So there are players like Joe Sakic who played better. You know, he played good with whoever he played with.
With Quebec, and then
yes.
They moved to Colorado.
And same thing with Peter Forsberg. Wherever he went, he was a good player, and he was traded for Eric Lindros. You know, so there are players. Wayne Gretzky, wherever he went, he was good. Mark Messier, he was good wherever he went. So there are players that you look at, no matter where they would have went, they would have succeeded. I don't know if won a Stanley Cup like Mark Messier did in his 94 season with the Rangers, But he was sensational, and he was a big part of why the Rangers won the Stanley Cup, especially against the Devils, scoring that hat trick when everybody thought they were done.
Every Ranger fan.
They ran him off.
Yeah, every Ranger fan was like, "Oh God, here we go again," and then he gets a hat trick.
So again, when you look at Hall of Famers, there are some Hall of Famers that you can pick out of the ordinary and say, you know what, if he didn't play for that team, he probably wouldn't have been as good. Okay, and I'm listening to Carl right over here. Jeremy Roenick was good, but not great at all places. You're absolutely right, Carl. He wasn't. Chris Chelios, and I'll say this, Chris Chelios was a great defensive player. But if Chris Chelios did not go to the Chicago Blackhawks when he did, and then he won a Stanley Cup in Detroit. Mm-hmm. If he didn't go to Detroit, he would have never won the Stanley Cup. He would have never won. And that's a fact. Right. He played with Nicholas Lindstrom, who's one of the greatest defensemen to ever play. Yep. He played with Stevie Yzerman. He played with all these different great players. So, yes, and I'm not going to say, well, he says Chris Chelios, Hall of Famer in Chicago and Detroit. And I'm not saying that he wasn't. But Chris Chelios, when in Chicago, he played with Eddie Belfour. He played with Jeremy Roenick, Tony Amonte. He played with good players, okay? Now, would Chris Chelios would have been great if he stayed in Montreal? No, he wouldn't have. He wouldn't have. Let's be honest with each other. He wouldn't have. So, yes, there are certain players that, they stand out. Like, if Mike Trout played for any team in the major leagues, would he still be as good?
Yes,
of course he would be, because he's one of the greatest baseball players ever play. If Mickey Mantle played for other than the Yankees, do you think he would have still been good? Yes, he would have. Okay, there are players that stand out to you that no matter where they would have went, they would have succeeded. You saw what Babe Ruth did. He came from Boston. They won championships in Boston, not World Series, but they won championships. He went to the Yankees because he was sold to the Yankees for $100,000 because the owner's an idiot. And really, he shined in New York. He built the house that Ruth built. So my argument here with this particular topic that Speedy brought up is not the fact that some of these Hall of Famers, if they went somewhere else, if they played for another organization, they probably wouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. The question is, when you look at the player and look at their talent, were they good enough if they would have went somewhere else? Like Scottie Pippen. Exactly, Carl. Scottie Pippen, would he be the player that he turned out to be if he didn't play with Michael Jordan? Right. The answer is no. Really, no. That's a fact. I mean, if Barkley played for any basketball team, he would have been still good. Tim Duncan, if he went anywhere else, he would have still been good. Patrick Ewing, wherever he would have went. Hakeem Olajuwon, anywhere they would have went, they would have been good. They would have been great players. Hall of Famers? I don't know. That's a good question. But Derek Jeter is the guy that stands out to me the most. Because Derek Jeter was drafted by the Yankees in the first round. He was the 5th pick. I remember it. And he wanted to play for the Yankees, and the whole story is he was going to go and play for Michigan baseball. He decided that he had a chance to play for the Yankees because the Yankees were drawing at 5, and there was a lot of insight that none of the top 4 teams were interested in drafting him. So that was his best chance to go play for his long life dream to play for the New York Yankees. So he would be the guy that stood out to me the most. But there are players in all different sports, and everybody can argue this point, that made it to the Hall of Fame that might have not been there. I mean, Allen Iverson was a Hall of Famer no matter where he went. He was a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, he's the other extreme. He played with a lot of nobodies on that team.
But let me ask you this question. If Jason Kidd didn't leave the Mavericks when he did, would Jason Kidd be a Hall of Famer?
Interesting.
And I'll tell you this right now. In what I saw his first couple of years with the Mavericks, the answer is no. He probably wouldn't be. And I'm not saying Jason Kidd is not one of the greatest point guards of all time, but he transitioned his game when he went to the Phoenix Suns. He completely changed his game when he went to the Phoenix Suns, and then when he went to the Nets, he completely turned into a player that everybody loved to enjoy watching with the Nets. And he took the Nets not once but twice to the NBA Finals.
I mean, back-to-back years, too.
Yeah, so I mean, Jason Kidd completely transitioned the point guard position at the size that he was and really became a better shooter than he was when he came into the league. So Rasheed Wallace, would have been the Rasheed Wallace of old if he didn't play for the Detroit Pistons? And the answer is no. He wouldn't have. Ben Wallace, never. No. Richard Hamilton, when he left the Pistons, What did he do? He did nothing. He went to the Wizards. He played with Michael Jordan. He was terrible. Okay, so again, you can argue players, but you can also look at other players that are in the Hall of Fame right now that you can't argue. Brett Hull, no matter where Brett Hull would have went, he would have been one of the greatest offensive players of all time. I mean, seriously. Ovechkin. If Ovechkin didn't play for the Wizards, he played for the Islanders. You don't think the Islanders would be as good as the Washington Capitals? The answer is they would be. Because he changes the game. Those type of players, you're going to say, well, Derek Jeter, he was that type of player. Derek Jeter was a great player, but he also played for great teams. He wasn't, you could say whatever you want. Oh, Derek Jeter was the best player of those 90 champions. No, he wasn't. He wasn't even close. I mean, I would have taken Bernie Williams in the playoffs over Derek Jeter in a big spot. Paul O'Neill was a big part of their offense and what they did. How about the pitching that the Yankees had in all those years? The relief pitching. Now, if they didn't have Mariano Rivera, they would have never won. Mariano Rivera is a different beast. He's a different player because he transitioned the game where he brought the relief pitching and he showed the game that relief pitching is just as important as the starting pitching. So, anyways, when we come back, we're going to have our second guest of the day. We're going to be talking to Hawaii head baseball coach Mike Trapasso here on Down to the Wire.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. You're listening to Down to the Wire on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
631-965-4990 is the number. This is Down to the Wire. We are live every single Monday and Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. New York Eastern Time. Remember, you can dial the number at 631-965-4990, and you can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. And guys, download the app. I've been telling you guys this over and over again on iOS and Android. It's for all the fans out there to stay in touch, read our stories, watch our shows, listen to our shows live on our app. It's very, very easy, so stay in touch with us. As you guys know, we are now going to be talking to Hawaii head baseball coach Mike Trapasso. What's going on, Coach?
I'm doing well, guys. Thanks for having me on. How are you doing?
We are good, man. I'm actually doing the show under my desk, so I'm trying to hide from this pandemic. So just bear with me. It might be a little bit, a little bit low in certain aspects of moving under my desk. Okay.
Well, I can hear you fine if you're talking through your mask, so we're all good.
I like him already, Speedy. I like him already. Oh, as you guys know, we're talking to Mike Trapasso, the head baseball coach of Hawaii. So, Coach, why don't you tell us a little bit about your school and the growth of your baseball organization?
Well, we're the University of Hawaii. We're the only Division I school on the island in the state. So, and it's an interesting dynamic that we have here. It's a great place to go to school. It's Hawaii is Honolulu in particular. We're on Oahu in Honolulu, and campus is about less than 2 miles from Waikiki Beach. So it's as you can imagine, a beautiful place. It's it's a neat dynamic in that there are no professional sports of any kind in the state and in Honolulu. And Honolulu's a good-sized city. We've got over 1 million people on our island, and the sports entertainment dollar that someone in Honolulu wants to spend is going to be for the University of Hawaii, whether it's football, baseball, volleyball, basketball. So we get great great fans, a lot of passion, and it's an interesting place. I'm going on my 20th year here. I'm from the Midwest originally, and it's just a great place to be.
How does the geography and climate of Hawaii, being very unique, obviously, from the regular 48 states, how does that impact the baseball team and the baseball field when you play? Yeah,
obviously, when you take a look at the the things that come to mind initially are the climate is great for baseball. We can play year round. Of course, we don't. In case our compliance officer is listening, we follow all the rules to the letter. So we wouldn't do anything that we're not supposed to. But obviously, it's it's a beautiful place. The weather is great year round. When I came here, Hawaii actually has a rich baseball tradition, and we had a coach that started the program and was a legend, local gentleman named Les Murakami, who's in the College Baseball Hall of Fame, and built a tremendous stadium. We've got a great environment where we're actually top 20, top 25 in the country in the NCAA every year in attendance. So we get great. It's a great environment to come to the games. We sell beer at our games, and I think that's one of the reasons why we also get good attendance. And it's a great atmosphere for college baseball that you really can't get on the West Coast. It's more akin to an SEC Big 12 atmosphere that we have here. So it starts with the weather, and we've got a great facility, great fan support. For baseball, we're in the Big West Conference, so we're not a Power 5 conference. We're a mid-major, but the Big West Conference for baseball is one of your better conferences for baseball. It's tremendous with historically great teams like Cal State Fullerton, Long Beach State, UC Irvine, Cal Poly, UC Santa Barbara. We've had 4 different schools go to the College World Series over the last 6 years. It's a great baseball. When I first got here, we were in the WAC, the Western Athletic Conference, but about 6 years ago, we moved into the Big West. So for baseball in particular, it's a great atmosphere, and it's a great conference to be in.
As you guys know, we are talking to Hawaii's head baseball coach, Mike Trapasso. Now, Coach, I ask a lot of coaches this. When you're recruiting a player, you're going into their homes, and you're trying to sell your school, and there's so many other schools. There are so many Power 5 teams that you can go and play for, but you're walking right in there with some of your coaches, and you're selling your school. How do you sell not only the academic, the school as a whole, being that it's in Hawaii, but sell your baseball program to these players?
Yeah, it's a great question, guys. It starts obviously with the interest that you'll get. We initially by saying, hey, University of Hawaii, you can come and play in a beautiful atmosphere. Everybody may not like beaches and bikinis, but most guys do. So that's a great place to start. And obviously we've got some challenges to our recruiting because of our location, because of our distance, and that's something that's hard for some kids to overcome, because it's the nearest it's the nearest state next to Hawaii is California, and it's 2,500 miles away, and so we obviously have that challenge to overcome. But if you can overcome that distance obstacle, we do, like I said, have some pretty interesting things for college baseball anyway on the West Coast, in that we have a tremendous facility. We're top 20. We lead the West Coast in attendance almost every year. We do have, it's a very good school academically, I think very underrated. Obviously, like every school, it depends on what you're wanting to major in. But the things you would sure think Hawaii would be strong in, we are. Oceanography, marine biology, meteorology, but we're also very good at business. Our business school is actually ranked in the top 30 colleges of business by U.S. News and World Report. But you know what, guys? At the end of the day, it's like everything. No matter where you are or where I've been, it comes down to establishing relationships, just getting to know the kids and their families, and trying to earn their trust, to earn mom and dad's trust. That allows you to get the kid on campus and let them know that we're here for them and working for them. And like I've always said in recruiting, it's about winning over the mom, because if you don't win the mom over, you're not going to get the son. That's for sure.
So you actually went in my next question nicely. big disadvantage, you being in Hawaii with, again, not part of the continental United States, is jet lag. You play in a conference, again, mostly against those California teams you mentioned, but they're all really close together, so they don't really have to deal with that problem as much. What strategies do you use and your staff use in order to help these players overcome the jet lag and try to just play through it?
That's a great question because it really does come into play in our season. We're fortunate. We'll play a great schedule every year, and in our non-conference, what's funny is that we, for the most part, we'll play almost all of our non-conference games here because everybody wants to travel to Hawaii. So we'll take one non-conference weekend series on the mainland and play, but everything else is here. But then once we start conference play, we're back and forth quite a bit, and it could be every other weekend. We'll take about 5 or 6 trips to the mainland every spring. So it does wear on you, and it's harder when you're heading to the east. It's easier when you're coming west, with the time difference. But we've learned over the years to try to we'll leave a day early so we can let the kids. The first day when they land, they'll want to sleep in, and then we'll let them try to get that jet lag out of their system. We'll practice on the facility the night before, and try to get that flight out of their system, and then play the game the next day. So we try to leave a couple days before the series might begin, but it's not easy, and there's nothing to hide. You can't hide from it. There's no way to get around it. You just I think you just got to power through it. And, fortunately we're dealing with 18 to 22 year olds that have a lot more energy than I do. So they're able to deal with it. But, you try to make sure that they're getting plenty of sleep and you're working on nutrition and doing the best you can just to take care of your bodies and not burn the candle at both ends.
As you guys know, we are talking to Hawaii head baseball coach Mike Trapasso. Now, Coach, I look at baseball and I look at the Tommy John situation with pitchers, even players right now. And I've asked a lot of coaches this, and I asked the last coach, Coach Bieser, what is his thoughts of the whole pandemic of Tommy Johns? Because to me, it's a pandemic now. Every single great pitcher that we've seen in the major leagues except Max Scherzer he's the only one out of the top pitchers we've seen over the years that hasn't had Tommy John surgery. Do you think the reason is because a lot of the parents push their kids at a young age to throw fastballs and curveballs at a young age, or do you think it's just because the game has transitioned into a power pitching game?
I think you nailed it on both ends. I think that both things you mentioned are contributing factors to what we're seeing. We see kids specializing at an early age and just focusing on baseball, and you've got what we call the showcase ponies that go and play in showcases over the summer, and kids are playing 150 games in the summer, and at the same time, the game, you're right, pitching it has changed just in the last 8 to 12 years to where it is all about power, and to reach that goal, that 90-mile-an-hour magic number for pitchers, for kids that are 15, it's all about get to 90, and there's no question that the body and the arm it's going to break down, and fortunately, at the same time, our medical technology has gotten so good to where Tommy John, as funny as it sounds, is almost become a routine surgery now. And it's funny, I would rather have a guy, one of my pitchers, go through a Tommy John, a major elbow reconstruction, than even a minor shoulder surgery. Because for pitchers, man, the shoulder surgeries are tricky. You get a lot of guys, in my experience anyway, of coaching at the Division I level, that come back from a shoulder surgery. It just changes the arm action, and it's really tricky. I'm about 50-50 on shoulder surgeries, whereas the elbow Tommy John guys almost always come back.
Interesting. Very interesting. In terms of the strategy for you, when you play another Power 5 team, or like you were mentioning earlier, a lot of those Southern California teams that have been college baseball powerhouses, is there anything different you do managerially in terms of a strategy standpoint when playing against those teams?
You know what? It's interesting in that in my career, college baseball is kind of funny because you've got the Midwest and the East Coast, which is where I started. I'm from the Midwest. I played at Oklahoma State. I've coached at South Florida and at Georgia Tech, and it's changing a little bit to where it's a little more cohesive nationwide. But what you had for years and years was Midwest East Coast baseball was more from an offensive standpoint anywhere was more power generated and more what you'd see in Major League Baseball today. Whereas the West Coast was always seen, and still a little bit today, it seemed more of a small ball generated type of offense where you play more for your pitching defense, the bunting game, the execution side of baseball is a lot more prevalent even still today, on the West Coast than it would be maybe in the Big 12 or the SEC, and so it is kind of funny that way. But from our standpoint, like every club, every year it's different. Depends on your personnel, your team, what kind of talent you've got. We play. One of the things about our ballpark at home is it's a big park. The trade winds, the Hawaii trade winds blow in from left field. They blow from left field to right field. So it's hard to hit the ball out of our ballpark. So our focus is pitching defense, and we'll have to execute a little bit more maybe than when we were at Georgia Tech. When I was there, we had a smaller ballpark, and we recruit guys like Mark Teixeira to just go and hit a bunch of home runs. And it was just a different type of offensive game. So it depends every year on your team, and regardless of who we're playing, we'll always stick to our strengths, whether it's offensively or mainly on the mound. Where regardless of who we're playing, we're gonna stick to our strengths if there are any questions.
As you guys know, we are talking to Hawaii head baseball coach Mike Trapasso. Coach, I look at the major leagues right now and the transition of the game. They're implementing, which I think is really, really funny, implementing electronic umpires possibly in the near future. You see with the changing of cheating and the game, how teams are trying to find ways to have one step over another team, aka the Astros. Is there any thought of the transition of the game, the rules of the game, that you think that should be implemented where it could change the game for the better?
Boy, that's a good question. I think that it's really funny because the mechanical strike zone, for lack of a better term, is interesting just in that the consistency that you would get. Any of our Division I umpires that might be listening will probably be pissed at me right now, but it's always better to have consistency if you can get it. But one of the beauties about our game, one of the things that makes baseball almost poetic is the human factor, and by putting the human factor in, you're going to talk about the possibility of guys screwing up. But I think that's all part of the beauty of the game as well, and I'm torn on that because as technology grows, we can make the game maybe better or faster. I sure wouldn't want to lose some of the things that have made the game great to watch. But there's no question that we in baseball can get stuck in our traditions to the point where we're not moving forward and not making the game better, and we're losing fans because our games are going too long. So it's an interesting dynamic on that. And it's a great question. I haven't been asked that question.
Talk about the experiences you had as the coach of Hawaii. You made the NCAA tournament in 2006 and 2010. And talk about those experiences and what it meant for the growth of this team.
Well, when I first came, we built the program and we've had some success here. Not as much as I think even we would like to have, but we really felt like this year's club was one of those clubs. I think it's unholy to say after 17 games our season was canceled, and I've heard coaches. Some coaches saying, "Oh man, if you saw the way we were playing, it was a given that we were going to go to Omaha in the College World Series. They were going to just mail us the trophy. We were playing so well." But but we probably had our best team we've had in years, and we were off to a really good start. We had played a really good schedule. Played Washington State. We played at Vanderbilt. We played Oregon, and we were really starting to come together. It was a really good group of kids. But we're always striving to get better every year, to get over that hump, to get the University of Hawaii to the College World Series. That's our goal, and we can do that, and that's what's kept me here going on 20 years is the thought that this is a great place. First of all, just to develop players to go to the next level, but more importantly than that, to develop our kids to become better fathers and better husbands, and I think we need more of those these days, and so it all comes together to where it's just a fun place to be.
Coach, is there a particular player that you have coached over the last couple of years that stands out, that has gone to pro ball and really has transitioned his game into the major league level?
Well, we've had a few. I guess a couple years ago we had 5 players at one point that were in the big leagues. Right now, Colton Long with the Cardinals, a great success for us was a 3-time All-American first-round draft choice, and we were really happy to see Colton win the Golden Glove for the National League second baseman last year. That was, I think, a big feather in his cap, and when we stay in touch with Colton. Colton's from Hilo on the Big Island, so he's a local boy that's done really well, and it's just so fun to watch. And actually, Colton's father, Kaha Wong, is a coach on the Big Island and helps us out quite a bit just with the baseball on the Big Island is very, very strong here in our state. But Greg Garcia with the Padres. Stephen Wright was our first All-Star, the knuckleballer, although he was actually a power pitcher when he pitched for us. He was a second-round pick, and then ended up transitioning to the knuckleball when he got it in the pro ball. But Josh Rojas just got called up to the big leagues last year, made his big league debut, and he played for us just a couple of years ago. We're excited for him, but. We just had a 4th-round pick by the Red Sox in the draft here a couple weeks ago. Jeremy Wu Yellen, left-handed pitcher that I think could get to the big leagues. And one of our guys, Carter Lowen, a right-handed pitcher, signed with the Padres. And I wouldn't sleep on him because he's a big, strong kid, 94, 95,
wow,
with a plus cut fastball that I think he could be a guy that could get there. So we're grinding it out as best we can and focusing on trying to develop guys. We've had a lot of success with pitchers, but I think from a Hawaii standpoint, those guys have stood out. In my years at Georgia Tech and in South Florida, we had some great players that came through our program and had good big league careers. So it's fun. I've always said that you get into coaching because you love the game, but you stay in the coaching because of the relationships that you build with your players, and it's really fun to follow your guys when they leave your program.
All right, being from Hawaii and coaching here in Hawaii, two-part question here. One, where do you stand on them bringing back the Rainbow Warriors name? And 2, have you embraced the culture like the football coach, the previous football coach, now he's at Washington State, Nick Rolovich? He's worn these giant leis and seashells necklaces during the games. Have you ever done anything like that?
Rolo's a good friend and he's a great coach, and we miss him because he's just such a good guy. But I'm so happy for him, and it's funny, when I first got here, Nick Rolovich was our quarterback, was playing for June Jones, who June Jones is one of more dynamic football coaches, one of the smarter guys that I've ever been around from a coaching standpoint, and a guy that really helped me when I first came here. But there's no question that you have to embrace our culture here. It is a different culture. It is it is different from the mainland. We're a very diverse culture. It's different from anywhere in the world. And when you embrace it, and when you when you really try to immerse yourself into what we do here, it's just a great place to be. It's it's about staying humble, and it's about just hard working and being grateful for what you have. And it's not for everybody. A lot of people will come here to Hawaii and they don't mesh, they don't embrace the culture, and they don't stay. And you'll see coaches come and spend a couple of years and end up just going back to the mainland because it's just something that's just not for them. It's not for everyone. But for the people it is for, it's a place where you can really put down some roots. I never thought when I came here, I was an assistant at Georgia Tech, and when I took the job, my first head coaching job, if you'd have told me that I'd be here 20 years later, I don't know if I would have believed that. But a big part of that is the culture and what we're able to go through here. But as far as wearing a lei or the puka shell necklace during a game, I've yet to do that. But anything's possible.
Oh man, the Rainbow Warriors name. I don't know about that one. Anyway,
I am pro Rainbow Warriors.
Well, it's been a funny deal because when I first came here 20 years ago, we were just the Rainbows. But then they changed it to the Warriors, and so we've kind of meshed to the for the men's sports we're the Rainbow Warriors, and for all the women's sports we are the Rainbow Wahine, which is women in Hawaiian.
Wow, I didn't even know that. That's really interesting.
As you guys know, we are talking to Hawaiian head baseball coach Mike Trapasso. Now, Mike, I before we let you go, this is something that I've never asked any coach, and I don't want to throw you under the bus so you get in trouble from your college and your team over there. If the Yankees or the Red Sox called you up right now and said, "Listen, coach, we want to hire you as the head baseball coach of our organization moving forward," would you leave the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors?
Oh, I think that that's a fair question for anybody, because I think in our business, first of all, I wouldn't expect that call, but if it ever came, you always take the call, you always listen, and whether it's playing or whether it's coaching, we're all interested in doing the best we can. I've got a lot of energy still left. I love working with kids at the collegiate level, but I've had opportunities, and I think maybe down the road I may still have opportunities, and you have to look at the idea of working in Major League Baseball, because you're dealing with the best players in the world, and there's something to be said about that could be really neat. But it's a different dynamic. Like I said, here when you're dealing at the college level, you're dealing with with life lessons and developing young men to go out into the world. Major League Baseball it's a different dynamic because you're in the real world, and it's about producing and winning, and but yet that's fun too. And I was born and raised in St. Louis, though, so I'm a lifelong Cardinals fan. So that would that would be an interesting one as well. But it's always a I don't think I'd get in trouble. There are plenty of people probably in Hawaii that would love to see me go just anywhere other than here.
Well,
but I'm happy to be here, and I'll stay here as long as I stay here.
Well, you have some personality, Coach. So I do believe if you keep doing what you're doing over there and being, bringing out your personality, eventually somebody's going to be ringing at your door. So I'll tell you this right now. We've interviewed a ton of college coaches, and I will tell you this, and I'm not putting down any coaches that we've interviewed. You've been the most relaxed and very thorough one out of most of them. So that's saying a lot. And I'm talking about Power 5 coaches, throughout the country. So I think that your persistence in what you have done over there in Hawaii has been absolutely remarkable. 20 years as a head coach over there, you can't laugh at that. You have to say that this guy is successful, and he will be successful wherever he goes. So I'm happy to have you on. Coach, why don't you tell the fans how they can find you?
Hey, first of all, I really appreciate that. Check is in the mail. So we're good. But hey, you know what? You can follow us at hawaiiathletics.com. That's our website, and if you go onto that website, you'll see all of the stuff that the University of Hawaii Athletic Department has to offer. And then they'll also there'll be links to all of our social media that you can follow as we hopefully get started up again here soon and have fun just playing sports, whether it's baseball, football. We're a big volleyball state here. Our men's and women's volleyball teams are national power, so we're hoping that
Coach,
we get to just do something other than sit at home and watch reruns.
Coach, I'm getting sick and tired of watching reruns of badminton. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. I already know all of the all-stars in the cornhole World Series on ESPN. So I'm tired of watching that. We got to get some out.
That's pretty funny. Coach, this is what I want you to do. I want you to, after you get off the phone with us, I want you to send us your email. We'd like to send you the clips of the interview and the video of the interview. So we really appreciate you. And when the season does start, we would love to get you back on to talk about Hawaii baseball and college baseball. And hopefully in the near future, you're in the College World Series, and we'll get you on as well as that on that term as well. So
I'd love that, guys. Absolutely, we'll do.
Thank you so much, Coach.
You got it, fellas. Aloha.
Aloha. As you guys know, that is Coach right now, Trapasso, who gave us some good insight, not only about, his team. Like I said, he was very thorough. He gave us, he had a lot of fun. He gave us some fun answers to, and that's the great thing about interviewing people. You get to really get to know their personality. Coach Bieser was very thorough, but you could tell that he was, he was looking out, inside the box. You could see that Coach Trapasso was looking outside the box. So, but both of them, very good interviews. Yeah. Both of them gave us some good insight. Both of them are very, very talented at what, and both of them are playing, coaching great schools. So yeah. I think the growth of their teams and the growth of their schools are going to be astronomical, and I'm very happy to have them on the show and interview with us, because I know even though it's, with this pandemic, it's holding everything back, they have a little bit of time to talk a little bit of baseball. Let's get them on the show and talk baseball with them. It'll bring their smiles out, and that's what they want to talk about.
It's still afternoon for them, I think, for him in Hawaii, I think, too. He took time out of his day still.
He's not doing anything else. Well, was he going to the beach?
Maybe.
I mean, it's pretty. Is it a Hawaii number that we called?
Yeah.
Oh, so he's in Hawaii. So
yeah.
Anyways,
maybe he's training for that cornhole all-star team.
Maybe he is. The Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. I do not like that name.
Really? Oh, come on.
Hawaii Rainbow Warriors? Come on.
I will say I didn't realize about the
Rainbow Warriors.
I didn't realize about the women's teams that they were named differently.
Waikiki.
I like that name. I really do. That's really cool. But I will always be pro Rainbow Warriors.
Well, I mean, just looking at you in a mirror would probably explain everything, Speedy.
Yes, I do like vibrant colors. Thanks for noting.
Well, there you go. Anyways, I will say this before we go, and we will be back for Below the Mic. I want to give a shout-out to the Big Guy Sports Show, Wise Guys, last night. Great show, guys, by the way. And looking forward for all these shows to move forward with us in the near future. We're gonna give you the best value for the buck. And I'll tell you this right now, all our shows, we're going to have shows throughout the day on our network, great shows where you can tune in and really tune in on some of the content that we're going to be talking about, the interesting content now that sports is coming back, baseball, basketball, hockey, football. We're very excited because now that sports is coming back, it's going to transition a lot of things that we're going to be talking about. And believe it or not, we could talk about a lot of things when it comes to sports. And a lot of people say, how are you talking about this on sport? There's no sports going on. There's a lot that you can talk about that you don't realize that can argue, and you can argue and really implement into the conversation with the content that we're going to give you. So I just want to give a shout out to all the fans that tune into us every single day throughout our network, throughout our shows. Ryan Hickey, I saw him peeking in throughout the show. Great show. And guys, if you haven't checked out Ryan's show, The Morning Boys, in the morning, every single Monday and Thursday morning at 9 o'clock. It's a great show. Tune in on that. I'm telling you guys, it's a must listen to. Like I said, the Big Guy Sports Show, the Wise Guys, Carl's show.
The sports hit list.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, we have so many shows, and we have a lot of shows coming back. Off the Mat, our wrestling show on Saturdays with Josh and Alex. I mean, we have some good, talented shows, and we're going to add some hockey shows and some golf shows. We're working on it, guys, so stay tuned for that. As you know, you can call us at 631-965-4990. I know there wasn't a lot of time to call the show because we have a lot of guests, and we're trying to relay our content throughout our show. So I'd like to thank Coach Steve Bieser, the Missouri head coach, and Coach Mike Trapasso, the coach of Hawaii, which gave us some good insight with his team and gave us a little laugh. So
Yes.
both of them did. Great coaches, and looking forward to getting them on the show in the near future as well.
I'm still waiting for the game that he's going to coach in those necklaces, though.
There you go. We will be back on Thursday for Below the Mic. I'm going to tell you this, guys. I've got a great show lined up for you, not with guests, just the guests. The attitude that I'm going to give you, and there's certain subjects that I do want to get into, and we're going to get into that on Thursday, and I'm sure you guys are going to love the topic, so stay tuned for that, and I'm definitely going to hit you below the belt. So that's something that you definitely, and I'm looking forward to hearing from Jeff or Snug, because there are going to be a lot of arguments and attacks on that. Anyways, that's it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back. Well, this show will be back on Thursday. There's a lot of shows lined up for you guys tomorrow. We have the Wise Guys. We have the Big Guys Sports Show. We have Carl's show, the Hit List. Mm-hmm. We got some shows tomorrow for you guys. So stay tuned for tomorrow, and we will be back on Thursday at 6 p.m. here at the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Until then, this is Errol Marks and Speedy Petey saying good night, and we'll talk to you then. Good night, everybody.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.